Okay, so today I'm going to talk about AWS reInvent 2023. I was actually at the conference in person and I was able to see a lot of the stuff that was going on. And what's pretty cool about it is that there are a lot of exciting releases. And like, I think the one that off the top of my head is one of the more interesting ones is the AWS SDK for Rust, which is one of the most exciting announcements. So I think what I'll do here is I will actually just talk through the announcements and skip ones that I don't really have a lot to add about, and that would be a good way to give an update. So I'm going to go ahead and talk about this. Let's go ahead and start with the first one I see here is analytics. So there's a new feature which is introducing highly durable Amazon Open Search clusters with 30% price and performance improvement. So that's always good, right? You get um, cheaper open search, which I think will be something I'll take a look at. We also have AWS clean rooms, differential privacy. I don't know if I understand this. Let me read on this. So it says starting today, you can use AWS clean rooms to protect the privacy of your users, and you don't have to know anything. So you add noise when analyst runs a query. It adds error to query, making the contribution of the individual while still keeping the query accurate enough. Yeah, I don't know if I totally understand this. I'll have to dig into this. It sounds interesting. Okay, we also have some more clean room. So we have new generative AI capabilities for Data Zone, automatically the labor intensive process of data cataloging. So it looks like there's some kind of data catalog feature. This definitely seems like it's something we're seeing more and more, which is people want to be able to get metadata about their data sets. So this does look pretty cool. This is, I think, probably similar to something you would see in Databricks, which has the Unity catalog. So I'll definitely take a look at this. This looks like an interesting announcement. Analyze large graph data. Uh, well, yeah. So Neptune Analytics, I've definitely tried to play around a little bit with Neptune in the past. Um, it looks like there is a vector search now inside of Neptune. So this could be pretty cool, actually. It looks like I'll definitely want to play with this. In fact, I think I would put that on the top of my list to take a look at. I think this would be a very interesting service to take a look at. We also have Amazon Q and QuickSight, uh, which we can take a look at really quick, which is a generative AI assistance for quicker, easier data insights. So you go to QuickSight and you can actually, I guess you have some Gen AI capabilities here. So I'm assuming what it does is that oh, I see. So that's pretty cool, actually. So let's say that you had some dashboards. You could click a button and just say, hey, essentially, give me an executive summary of this so I don't have to write the email to my boss. I think that's a pretty cool feature. We have anomaly detection with Glue. Okay, we have step functions. Um, in a unified, interesting. So there's like a new way to work with step functions, uh, application composer. So like a more drag and drop step functions capability. Okay, definitely. Yeah, I think I'll definitely play with that. Workflow Studio. This looks interesting. I mean, I thought some of these already existed, but it looks like there's some advanced capabilities being added inside of this drag and drop interface. I'll definitely take a look at that as well. More SQS stuff. What else do we have here? AWS Marketplace. So it looks like there's a faster way to deploy SaaS apps. Compute here. So there's new Graviton 4. So that could be interesting. We also have new high memory instances for large in-memory databases. So things like SQL Server, Oracle. I wonder also maybe vector databases, right? That could be a use case. We also have this Amazon Connect contact center talks with Amazon Q. We have a container. So there's a managed service for Prometheus. There's some different EKS features, customer enablement for RE Post. Okay, we have database here. So we have Redshift has new capabilities. You can get SQL recommendations from natural language prompt. That's pretty cool. I think this is definitely a pretty cool feature. Vector search for document DB is available. Huh, very interesting. And if I open this up, what do they mean by that? So today we have vector search for Amazon document DB. So how do you get started with? I don't think I've actually used document DB, and I'm not sure why that's that different than actually MongoDB, but it sounds interesting. Okay, we have fault injection, developer tools, IDE extension for applications composer. Uh, so that looks interesting. So let's see if we go. So it looks like you can use application composer directly in your IDE. Oh, okay, pretty cool. So it'll be available in March. So I guess if you're going to build step functions, you can build it right inside of your IDE. So I like all the IDE stuff that's actually happening. This looks actually really cool. I would be curious. It only supports. It looks like the VS Code, but I'd be curious about other editors since I'm switching to IntelliJ. Let's see what else we have. Amazon Q and Code Catalyst. Huh, interesting. So Code Catalyst, which I've definitely been playing around with here. There's it looks like there's some features that are available in terms of generative AI. So summarize a change. So yeah, we see some Gen AI capabilities coming to their managed coding environment, which is what Code Catalyst is. And oh wow, interesting. So Amazon Code Catalyst introduces custom blueprints and a new enterprise. So the blueprints is definitely something I'm interested in. So it says custom blueprints, so you can set up a project in minutes. So this is pretty cool. So you basically can uh, create a template for Code Catalyst. So Code Catalyst is similar to, let's say, GitHub Code Spaces. Definitely looks pretty interesting. And we also have Thin Client from Amazon, looks pretty cool. And now in terms of generative AI, we see SageMaker Studio has a lot of stuff inside of here. So one of them is that there's a IDE now with SageMaker, and there's a code editor as well. And so I think this is probably one of the bigger ones, which is that people, I think, have really been struggling with the fact that they want to work inside of an editor, not just a Jupyter notebook. And so I think this is a big one. I definitely will be using this feature. I think SageMaker was not even a viable option for me without this. So I think this is a big one for me. More packages, model builder for SageMaker. There's Canvas, which is the AutoML tool. There's some more capabilities here. Different inference for SageMaker. Um, there's now a way to do evaluation in SageMaker Clarify for foundation models, and you can evaluate, compare, and select your models. So this looks pretty interesting in Bedrock. You can have your own automatic evaluations. We also have SageMaker HyperPod for distributed training. Amazon Titan Image Generator incorporates a bunch of stuff from Amazon. We also have Claude 2.1. So this is, I think, a pretty big one too, which is that you have a huge context window for Claude, which I think is very helpful. Now, this is the one that is kind of a big one, which is Amazon Q, a new generative AI powered assistant. If we go into this, basically you have your own assistant that you can customize here, and that is actually pretty cool. I'll have to definitely dive into this. I mean, the idea of being able to create your own Gen AI assistant and you can connect it to data sources is pretty cool. I mean, I think this is definitely a killer feature, especially because of a lot of the privacy problems with data. Like if you don't want your data to go outside of your cloud environment or to be given to a third party company, et cetera. I think this is really a huge feature, and I'm definitely going to play around with it. Um, Customize models in Bedrock, which looks pretty cool. Build generative AI applications using step functions and Bedrock. Oh, that's pretty cool. I'll definitely play around with that. We also have Amazon Code Whisper offers new code remediation, infrastructure as code, and integrations, management and governance. We also have, I guess, NLP to Amazon CloudWatch, which is pretty cool, I guess. So just a ton of Gen AI stuff. Network, we have some load balancing things. What else do we have? Security, uh, more security features. Serverless vector engine for Amazon Open Search. A vector engine makes it easy to build. So it looks like if you're wanting to build um, things with a vector database, there are a few different features now. Amazon Open Search serverless. So this looks pretty cool. We also have, wow, this is interesting. Lambda can now scale 12 times faster. Uh, so it can scale by 1,000 concurrent executions every 10 seconds, which is cool. Now, this is another one that a lot of people are talking about, which is the Amazon S3 Express One Zone high performance storage class is very interesting because it can deliver 10 times better performance. Yeah, what really makes me curious about this is whether it opens up the space for serverless to become a more legitimate large language model target. So let's say you quantize a model, right? You reduce the accuracy to improve the inference performance. And so let's say you're able to get maybe a smaller large language model to work in, let's say, a Rust binary. You push that Rust binary to the Lambda, and then you maybe have the vector database or you basically have the context inside of this S3 Express or even the model weights, etc. It basically gives you between this S3 Express and Lambda in Rust potentially a serverless large language model solution. So I think that's very interesting. Um, Now, Amazon EFS now supports up to 250,000 read IOPS and 50,000 write IOPS. So this is also very interesting. I think a stealth feature of Amazon that very few people use is the network storage that's managed, and that's what Amazon EFS is. It's a managed NFS service, and for certain workflows, it can really be helpful because you're able to treat the managed file system as a shared resource for many things that you're doing. I think it's very interesting. Um, you can also optimize storage cost in EFS. That looks very interesting as well, right? So if you have, let's say, training data and you want to keep it in a warm spot, for example, it could actually automatically archive that for you so you could save cost. Looks like there's a bunch of FSX features, which is pretty cool. Now, the one that it's funny, one of the biggest ones that I didn't see here that I'll just briefly bring up is the Rust, which I think is the biggest announcement, is Rust SDK here. So AWS SDK for Rust. So this is now in general availability, and if I go to the guide, let's go ahead and take a look at this. We can see the repo contains the AWS SDK for Rust and its public roadmap. And if I go to the public roadmap, what we can see here is that um, SDK production readiness. It's done, right? So what this means is that this is a tracking issue for making AWS SDK for Rust production ready, but not stable. This is a general sense that of what is actually done. So I think this is basically saying, here we go. Now that all the tests is this production ready? We're still in preview. Okay, here we go. The SDK is now generally available and can be safely used in production. So I think this is a big one for many people that were waiting to, pull the trigger on the Rust language. The fact that AWS has made it generally available, I think points to the fact that Rust is now a legitimate option for many things. And I would say, if you want to get a head start on learning a skill in 2024, that's going to be a big skill for cloud computing. I think Rust probably is one of the biggest skills that you can learn. So I think even though there's a lot of really cool Gen AI announcements from AWS reInvent 2023, the one that I think is the coolest announcement is the fact that the Rust SDK is available. And I would say the place that if it was me and you wanted to start playing around with Rust, I think the best place to start is to actually use Cargo Lambda. So Cargo Lambda allows you to run, build, and deploy Rust functions on AWS. And so I think the user experience here is just so tremendous in terms of like how awesome it is to use Cargo Lambda. This is where I would start. Go to Cargo Lambda, brew install it, create a new project, watch the function locally, test it out, and then build the function, deploy it on Lambda, and then try it out. I think this is an amazing thing available for people that are trying out the Cargo Lambda ecosystem. So I guess in a nutshell here, I think that will wrap up what I wanted to talk about. I think a few other things I'll mention about the reInvent in closing would be that I think one of the approaches that AWS is using that's a little bit different than the approaches of other cloud vendors is that they appear to be a little more cautious in terms of releasing technology that is undergoing a shift in terms of what the world thinks about it. I think it's especially with generative AI, one of the bigger issues now is going to be, are you properly handling copyright, moral rights? Are you creating a bad scenario for people who are creators by using their work in a way that is really not ethical? So I think AWS isn't perfect, and there's lots of things that if I was in charge, maybe I would change. But I think their approach has been to be on the safer side of this argument. And you can see that with things like Code Whisper, even though they're a little bit slower, maybe with the generative AI tools. I think what we're seeing is actually a better approach, which is that because they are the dominant leader, they don't need to take chances and burn the trust of people and get a bad reputation, where people that are not the leaders in cloud computing are maybe doing things that are more risky because they want to try to get ahead. Now, that could backfire though, because if it turns out that the lawsuits around generative AI have merit to them, which I think there is a lot of merit to them, and there's a public opinion where people are, really concerned about authors, who are, or creators who are losing their livelihood because their work has been trained on without their permission. I think these are big issues, and I think many people are downplaying them and saying, they're not real issues. I think these are very naive people, and so I think for 2024, there's another issue. I think Rust is one that's big. I think the second one is, what is your company's uh, plan to deal with generative AI in a way that exposes the least amount of risk and also acts in an ethical way, because your reputation could be impacted if you're doing things that later are determined to be illegal. right? If you're using generative AI solutions that put your company at risk, even if there's, identification for it, this could really be an issue. So I think those are some of the things that I would mention that I really got out of the reInvent would be Rust. Yes, is a big deal. There was a talk I went to where they talked about how they were able to save 10x times the cost by using Rust, switching from Python to Rust. So I think this is one that a lot of people are kind of like skeptical about. Hey, why should I use Rust? Well, Lambda charges you by memory, and so Rust is a low memory language, very performant. You're going to save a lot of money by shifting your workloads to Rust. I think that's one way. The second takeaway would be, I think the cautious generative AI approach is going to probably give you the most reward. And that's probably the second big takeaway. So hopefully that was helpful to people. If you want me to do more of a follow up on the Gen AI stuff, I could probably do some more on that next week. All right, I'll talk to you then.